us turn to the moment everyone has been waiting for, the Democracy Town Hall. And it is my absolute honor to introduce someone who has been a guide, a friend, a brother, Wajahat Saeed Khan, Emmy-nominated journalist, best-selling author, and the CEO of our partner, the Park Futures Foundation. Wajahat will begin by walking us through the Georgetown Code of Conduct, and then we will have take us into what promises to be one of the most important conversations today. Wajahat, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Malik Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina as-siratal mustaqim. Siratal lazina an'amta alayhim. Ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. Ameen. पाकिस्तान के खिलाफ बहुत सारे महाज खुले, कुछ हमने खुद खोले और आज कुछ हमारे खिलाफ खोले जा रहे हैं. आज का महाज जमहूरियत के नाम है. Today's show is about democracy. Before I begin, I'm going to read out Georgetown's speech and expression policy so that it can be conducive and engaging as an environment for everyone. It's important to note that Georgetown University is committed to standards promoting speech and expression that foster the maximum exchange of ideas and opinions, whether you like it or not. While it is recognized that not everyone may share the same views as the speaker, it is expected that everyone in attendance respects the right of every speaker here to share their perspective and ideas by not causing a disruption to the event's activities. Thank you for contributing for a constructive and what I hope is a meaningful conversation. My name is Wajahat Saeed Khan. I am the founder and a humble partner of this great initiative. Democracy is a loaded word. Since the inception of this current constitution, under which the Islamic Republic of Pakistan is premised, Pakistan's different leaders have actually gotten some great one-liners, some great zingers about democracy. Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, the author of that constitution, had a great slogan for democracy: Roti, Kapda, Makan. Ziaul Haq, the guy who followed him, didn't care much about democracy, but when he was asked who his constituency is, he quipped that the only constituency which matters to me is the army. After Zia, Bibi, the late Mohtarma Shaheed Benazir Bhutto, came up with something even more interesting: democracy is the best revenge. After that, series of musical chairs. Not much was exciting about Nawaz Sharif's early era, except the ethnic sloganeering, the loaded democratic push called Jag Punjabi Jag. But in his later versions, he did come to realize that he needs to be a little broader. He came up with Vote Ko Izzat Do, and of course, the world-famous Mujhe Kyun Nikala. Of course, between those different versions and renditions of Nawaz, we had the infamous or famous, depending on how you want to treat him, the former Pakistani president, General Pervez Musharraf, who came up with the world-famous Pakistan First, with his big SSG dollars to give him company there. And then, finally, in the latest rendition of his different stands, from born-again Muslim to revived populist, there was Imran Khan. There is Imran Khan, who quipped famously, perhaps most famously, "Tabdili aayegi nahi, tabdili aa gayi hai." Now, those are different versions of democracy from some of our leaders. I can't quote the more boring ones, they don't matter. But there are some fantastic people here. And I am going to quickly premise my question to them in a format which is both exploitative of their brilliant minds, but also useful for the rest of you. We're going to go through a round-robin, very rapid response. This is a town hall. It's nothing without you. So here's my premise. After listening to all those who have passed, what is the present-day version of the Pakistani democratic setup? Now, Shehbaz Sharif hasn't really come up with anything exciting, at least not for me as a student of communication. So, the next best thing is, of course, Pakistan's de facto military ruler, Field Marshal Asim Munir. Now, if you follow Field Marshal Asim Munir, which I love to do every day, it's the first guy I read about every morning, Asim Munir's been pushing, or as well as his information machine, have been pushing a new version of democracy. It's called the hybrid nizam. In fact, he has perpetuated this with another great version of democracy, which he calls the hard state. Now, this is the Field Marshal's version of the events. Perfectly fine. That's his problem, not mine. But in these halls, these venerated halls, words have been going around. These venerated halls of the American Academy. Around 6 months ago, when I was at Harvard attending another conference, I met the Pakistani finance minister. And I asked him a question, triggered, of course, by all of this, triggered by whatever is going on in Pakistan. I said, how does it feel, sir, to be representing a regime which is inherently illegitimate? And he turned around, batted me off like he's Saeed Anwar through the covers, and said, well, Wajahat, it's time for something pragmatic. Of course, he was at Harvard. He didn't really open up. But when I further confronted him inside, he said the same thing. He said, Waqt aa gaya to do hard things and make hard decisions. A couple of weeks ago, another person, completely not related to the finance minister, a very famous columnist, Nadeem Farooq Paracha, had a tweet. Now, this is a very different part of Pakistan that he represents. Not the Takht-e-Lahore, not the HSN crowd, not the establishment. In fact, quite the opposite. Nadeem Farooq Paracha is a venerated columnist from Dawn. Some people like him, some people really like him. But he said something interesting, which is being now, well, debated widely. He said it's time for pragmatic authoritarianism to take root in Pakistan. I thought that was quite interesting. I said, what the hell is this? This is fun. What's Mr. Smoker's Corner doing here? And he said, I'm not apologizing for it. I'm not apologizing for it. I'm just explaining that there's a strong man here in America. There's a strong man next door to Pakistan. In India, there's been a bunch of strong men in Iran. And of course, Afghanistan. In fact, hardcore, coercive nationalism, arm twisty nationalism, aggressive nationalism is on the rise. So if it's happening everywhere else, we might as well follow it ourselves. Ye reality hai. And this is what the center today stands for. This is not a person in uniform. This is a columnist for a mainstream progressive publication which claims that was founded, rightly so, by Qaid-e-Azam Muhammad Jinnah. Dawn ka columnist hai. Nawai Waqt ka columnist nahi hai. So, with that premise, ab ek tabka aa gaya Pakistan mein. There's a certain type of Pakistani who's saying, yaar, zarurat hai. Dande ki zarurat hai. Ab, premised on that. Ek wo tabka hai. और एक हम जैसे लोग हैं ठीक है we're going to have that debate कि किस किस्म की डेमोक्रेसी की ज़रूरत है मेरे साथ मेरे उस्ताद मेरे बड़े हामिद मीर साहब हैं हामिद मीर साहब को कौन नहीं जानता मैं जियो में एक छोटा सा अदना सा हेड ऑफ प्रोडक्ट डेवलपमेंट था जब हमने इनका शो स्टार्ट किया ये मुझे जानते भी नहीं थे बट पहली जो इनकी ब्रॉडकास्ट थी उसमें मैं आई वाज ग्लैड हिस्सा था जब जियो न्यूज़ स्प्लिट हुआ जब से मैं इनको जानता हूँ फॉलोड हिज वर्क आज हामिद मीर साहब ने हम सबको इधर इंटरव्यू किए हैं मुझे नहीं किया पता नहीं क्यों मगर बाकियों को किए हैं शायद कोई मसला है हमारे बच्चों से बात की है आपसे बात की है मेक श्योर यू टॉक टू हिम आफ्टर दिस बट हामिद मीर साहब हैज सैक्रिफाइस्ड पर्सनली नॉट वंस ट्वाइस 2 assassination attempts on this man he's got a bullet in his belly to prove his stand for democracy we must give him a quick hand साथ to represent and bridge the gender gap as well, but not just that, the generational gap, even more important. Yumna Rizvi hai mere saath. She's a senior policy analyst at the Center for Victims of Torture in Washington. She's done some great work on the Pakistani law and order situation, the national security situation, the human rights situation. Say welcome to Yumna. Of course, Aqil Shah Saab, professor right here at the Edmund A. Wash School of Foreign Service, जो मुझे कभी दाखला नहीं मिलना था बचपने में, but ज़बरदस्त इन्होंने किताब लिखी है on the army and democracy in Pakistan. If you haven't read it, you're in the wrong room. Please give him a hand. One of the leading lights in the Pakistani Academy. और फिर मेरा यार मेरा बदमाश Raza Rumi Raza and I have known each other for years. Raza मेरा editor भी रहा हुआ है Friday Times के लिए वैसे भी मेरे vlog पे आता रहा है Raza we almost lost because Raza pe attack hua tha kuch saal pehle, after which he was forced to move here. We're very lucky to have him. He lost his driver in that assassination attempt, which was targeted against his unbending, unrelenting stance against militant forces, proxy forces of the Pakistani military. Give him a hand. Now, you're not going to like some of the things these men and women say. But before that, before we go here, we have to go to the man with the plan. He's watching me like he's George Orwell, like he's Big Brother. He's looking very dapper in his tracksuit, as usual. It's 2:33 a.m. Back in Pakistan, but obviously Peshawar has a special time zone which, unlike any other politically, Taimur Jhagra is the former finance minister and the health minister of the fantastic KP province, and he should have been in office. He's not. He's fighting for his rights to get the vote in. He stayed up for us just to give us the perspective, the more contrarian perspective from the establishment, which I'm sure you'll hear from certain people again. Taimur has been blocked from traveling to this great conference, particularly picked and put on the ECL. First, his daughter was targeted. Today, he's been targeted. He is not going to stop. We will not stop. We will lead with him. Assalamu alaikum, Taimura. Sange. Okay, so here's my question. Here's my question to everyone, but we'll first take Taimur. He stayed up late, and frankly, he's the most, as far as I'm concerned, the most discriminated against speaker in our current lineup as we speak right now. So, Taimur, you heard the premise, you know the format. Everybody, starting with you, will give a quick, and I know you love to talk, it's a habit your party men have as well, but give us a quick 2 to 3 minute summary, no more, about what you think democracy and its future is for Pakistan as we know it today.
Thank you, and I hope you can hear me.
We can, loud and clear.
Okay. So look, I think that one would like to say that there is enough protection for democracy in the Constitution and in our system, and enough safeguards that it shouldn't be under threat of any kind. So, for example, for democracy to be under threat, you would assume a few things to happen that shouldn't be happening. The Constitution is safeguarded by the fact that you need 2/3 of a majority in both houses of Parliament to be able to change it. And without changing it, that Constitution should guarantee fundamental rights, should guarantee democracy. So for this to happen, you would, for example, need to imagine that a party that has won 50 seats, 40 seats, 30 seats, 17 seats, can somehow be contrived to be put into power. It's very unlikely. You then have the safeguard of the courts and the Supreme Court of Pakistan. You would then need to assume that in some way you could break the court, where traditionally, as you said, that there have been different sides of the political divide, there have almost always been judges who will take a stand for democracy. And it's hard to imagine that on top of rigging an election in that way, that you could also break the courts to be able to break that safeguard. Right? And in the voting process, when you try and flat track this, you would also need to imagine, right, that somehow that those numbers that you need to break the Constitution are really put in place, and it's unlikely. Because even in a place like Pakistan, to ensure that 2/3 of the members of the National Assembly are present and vote for a constitutional amendment against their wills, and 2/3 of those in the Senate also vote for such amendments against their will. It's just unlikely to happen if we remember that's what stopped Nawaz Sharif from becoming Amir al-Mu'mineen in 1999.
30 seconds, Taimur. 30 more seconds for your opening statement, please.
Yeah. So all of this should be very unlikely to happen. But you know, and I know, all your panelists know, and all the audience knows, that all of this has happened in the last 3 years. And so what this means is, forget the future of democracy. The present of democracy is exceptionally dark. And for the future to be light, we need to fight for it. And that's my statement.
Thank you, Taimur Jhagra. Obviously, I forgot to mention that Taimur Jhagra is in the PTI. I'm really sorry about that. Just to make clear. Okay, all right. Next, the one and only, Hamid Mir Saab, 2 to 3 minutes, your opening statement about the state of democracy as you know it and the future of democracy as you think it'll happen in Pakistan.
Thank you very much, Wajahat Saeed Khan. You see, Pakistan was founded by a Democrat, Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah. And Pakistan can only survive with a democratic system. And if you go through the history of Pakistan, whenever there was dictatorship in Pakistan, Pakistan faced problems. Pakistan was broken, Pakistan was divided when a military dictator was ruling this country. Gwadar was added in the territory of Pakistan in September 1958 when a very weak political government was ruling this country, and the Prime Minister was Malik Feroz Khan Noon. He was a very weak Prime Minister, but he added Gwadar in the territory of Pakistan. General Ziaul Haq was a very powerful dictator in Pakistan, but when he was ruling this country, we lost Siachen. And as I mentioned, Pakistan was broken when General Yahya Khan was ruling this country. So whenever there was dictatorship in Pakistan, Pakistan suffered a lot. So the worst democracy is better than a good and powerful dictatorship. I don't believe, I don't agree with those people who say that the future of Pakistan is very bleak. Why? What is the reason? Because I am in journalism since last 35 years, and this is the first time in my journalistic career that I see the young people in Pakistan, from Azad Kashmir to Balochistan, and from Balochistan to Sindh, and from Sindh to Punjab. All of them are on one page. And just 3 days ago, when I was heading to the airport for coming here, so I was sitting in the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa Assembly, where the Chief Minister Suhail Afridi organized a grand peace jirga. And you know, it is not reported in the media properly, but all the political parties, including PMLN and JUI and all other parties, even the PMLQ, which is the legacy of General Pervez Musharraf, they were on one page and they were saying there was an agreement that the operations in the province should be conducted by the KP police and CTD, not by the others. And all the political parties were on one page. And they released a long declaration on which Islamabad is not ready to agree with them. But the political leadership of the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, they were on one page, including PMLN and the opponents of the PTI, which is ruling the province. So this is very important, that the province is being run by a chief executive, Suhail Afridi, who is not acceptable to Islamabad. But due to the public pressure and the public opinion, all the political parties were forced to agree with the policy of the provincial government. And this is not the case of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa only. The common people in Punjab, in Sindh, in Balochistan, in Azad Kashmir, Gilgit-Baltistan, they think like the same. So many people here asked me questions about the 27th Amendment, and they said, oh, we don't see any future of democracy in Pakistan after that amendment. So I was telling them that there was 8th Amendment when General Ziaul Haq was ruling this country. So he amended the constitution through 8th Amendment and grabbed all the powers of the parliament. But it was reversed.
30 more seconds, Mir Sahib.
And then 17th Amendment was done by Musharraf. It was reversed. So I believe in the people of Pakistan, in the resilience of the Pakistanis, and this kind of black constitutional amendment will be reversed because people of Pakistan defeated 4 military dictators in the last 78 years. They will defeat all the forces who are trying to impose a dictatorship in Pakistan.
Inshallah. Thank you. Yumna Rizvi, take it away.
Thank you, Wajahat. But so, look, in my experience on working in human rights in Pakistan and now working on national security and human rights in DC, while also observing the global decline of democracy, the one pattern that I see is that when institutions expand beyond their mandates, when executive overreach in the name of national security specifically expands without checks and balances, human rights violations occur. And trust ultimately then erodes and collapses. And without trust, democracies cannot function. People want democracy because they want agency, they want representation over who governs them. They want security, stable borders, and an environment in which economic life can flourish. But again, we've seen how executive power has chipped away at checks and balances globally. From my work at CVT, including visiting Guantanamo Bay Detention Center, I've seen how extraordinary powers justified in the name of national security persist long after the crisis that created them, right? That permanence reveals a deeper truth. Extraordinary measures rarely stay temporary. And we're seeing this now, that Guantanamo not only exists, but the fact that it's being repurposed by the Trump administration. So for 75 years, unfortunately, Pakistan has been a security-centric state. And when security becomes the organizing principle of the state, democratic norms sit perpetually in the balance and slowly erode. That doesn't mean that people don't want democracy, as Hamid Saab just gave excellent examples. The movements against Ayub Khan, the 1983 movement for the restoration of democracy, the lawyers' movement in the 2000s, history shows us that Pakistan's public has never been depoliticized. Rather, they've consistently mobilized for democratic principles. This is why even today, right, most recently with the resignations of the Supreme Court justices, people recite Faiz, Faraz, and Habib Jalib, because the tensions that they wrote about between authority and agency, between security and citizenship, still define Pakistan's political landscape. Human rights abuses like mass surveillance, vague extremism laws, media restrictions, crackdown on protests, and special courts for civilians all emerge in moments of fear and then normalize. Today, Pakistan stands at an inflection point, a highly politicized population that should be harnessed, that increasingly does not trust its institutions, and a political framework in which the imbalance of institutions is becoming formalized. So my position is this, that Pakistan can still become a credible democracy and have working institutions, but it's up to the people of Pakistan to define for themselves what a democracy is.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I've been sparing with my descriptions and my definitions. I must properly now address the young Yumna Rizvi as a senior policy analyst at the Center for Victims of Torture, where she covers US national security and human rights. Previously, she's worked on Pakistan with Justice Project Pakistan, torture and death penalty, and with the Hukuk-e-Pakistan, a human rights capacity building program. So, I've also been
recorded. I hope that gets recorded.
I've also been sparing about Aqil and Raza. In fact, I have not explained probably the best-looking man on this lineup, who is Zulfi Bukhari, who can't be with us because of personal obligations and problems. He hasn't been stopped by the ECL. But I must also remind you that this is sort of like an exile club of sorts. I feel like we must now go to that part of the room. Aqil, Raza and I are sort of in the same page. The semi-exile, self-exile, kind of exile, not very welcome back home type club. So now we've got a little understanding here, right? So Aqil, take it away.
Thank you, Wajahat. Thank you, Rai. I'm really disappointed that the only thing you'll remember about Georgetown is this and not the course you took with me. I have a long-standing belief that the Pakistan's society and its citizenry actually needs more protection from the army than by the army. And the speakers before me have given you sort of a very eloquent summary, so I won't go into the history. But we must recognize that Pakistan's deep structural imbalance, in which the military now has an institutionalized hegemony over not just the state, but pretty much all institutions of the state, civil society, and the economy. And so, in that sense, let me put my professor hat on and says, what is democracy? Democracy, basically, at its very minimum, is the idea that the outcome of elections should not be predetermined, one. And two, that those who get elected as the result of a free and fair election should not be subject to the vetoes of institutions like the military. And so in that sense, Pakistan really has rarely been a democracy, even in the minimum sense, unfortunately. Coming to this recent, what's now known as the hybrid regime. Hybrid regime is basically the concept that Pakistan seems to be stuck in this gray zone when it's neither a democracy nor authoritarian. But with the 27th extra constitutional amendment, I think Pakistan is inching closer to the authoritarian side of the ledger than the democratic one. And this form of sort of authoritarianism is basically, we've seen since 2018, so with due respect to Mr. Jhagra, it did not start in 2022, it actually started in 2018. And the idea is that you basically put allies or political parties or leaders that are willing to play by your rules of the game. You shut out the opposition from the entire political system, jail them, harass them, and you then engineer the constitution in a way that solidifies your power. The most dangerous thing about this new amendment and the sort of consolidation of power in the office of the Army Chief of Staff is not just that it's obviously blatantly authoritarian, but that it provides almost a semi-permanent basis to the power of the Army Chief of Staff. And we always make the mistake of individualizing Pakistan's structural problems. So today it's Munir, yesterday it was Bajwa, then it was Ziaul Haq. I think the fundamental problem is really institutional and structural, not individual. So if it was an individual problem, if you compare Musharraf to Zia, I mean, they are as different from each other in terms of their, let's say, religious beliefs, backgrounds, economic, right?
30 more seconds, sir.
Okay. So my point is basically that the fundamental rot is institutional, not individual. And unless we recognize that fact, and we, right now, one political party says, Asim Munir is the bad guy, of course he's consolidating power. The same political party said General Bajwa is the father of the nation. So the problem is that the army always finds these opportunistic politicians who are willing to play by the rules of the game. And I don't even blame the politicians, because there's a perverse incentive to cooperate with the military, because the route to power lies through the GHQ and not through elections. Thank you.
Thank you. I was sparing with Raza as well, as far as my description of him. He wasn't just the victim of a near assassination attempt, but Raza, mashallah say, importantly, is critically placed as a distinguished lecturer at the City University of New York. He's a best-selling author, and of course, he's one of the finest journalists of his generation. I didn't want to make it sound like we just have a victim here. He's not. He also has a lot of his own victims and scalps, especially in GHQ right now. Raza.
Thank you, Wajahat. Well, first of all, thank you very much, and kudos to the students who've organized and put this together. really remarkable given the turnout and the quality of sessions that I attended. Much has been said. It's always a problem being last because whatever you want to say, others have said it. But let me give it a shot. So when we think of the future, we cannot ignore the history. History defines what the present is and also shapes what the future is. So as Hamid Saab said earlier, I think if we look at Pakistan's history, which is turbulent and checkered, there's a 10-year itch. Every 10 years, there is a move to, roll back whatever democratic advancement or improvement has been made, and we enter into an authoritarian moment. So we are here in 2025, looking at the 27th Amendment, and if we look back what was happening almost a decade ago, this is the culmination of that. It has always been, already been mentioned, whether it was, and it started not just with Imran Khan, it had started earlier during Nawaz Sharif's tenure, when his interior minister was shutting down all NGOs, sending INGOs out, and squeezing the civil society. And then the military leadership and the intelligence agency took advantage and engineered an election of their choice and formally set down the hybrid model in place, which we see now has been legalized and constitutionalized, if I may use this word. So it is, of course, a very disturbing and unsettling moment. But should we be worried? I think we should not, because the reason is that, as has been said, Pakistan oscillates between a democratic ideal and an authoritarian reality. The people of Pakistan, it's a very diverse country. The only way that that country can function is through a democratic process and consensus. So people will challenge this. We already are seeing many voices. If you look at, it was mentioned that 3 dictators, we always mention that, but we must equally emphasize that the people of Pakistan stood up and fought for their rights, whether it was General Ayub Khan, or it was Ziaul Haq, or it was Musharraf. All 3 had to exit power after popular movements which forced them out of power. So I'm not that pessimistic. I think the moment is bleak, certainly. And what also makes this moment even more interesting is that, we have a very, the young youth factor was already mentioned. And yes, we see it all the time. Pakistan is perhaps one of the youngest country. The median age of a Pakistani is 23 today. So, and there's a huge opportunity for change. But add to that and look at that, other than many of them supporting the PTI, which is of course cited as this current opposition to the regime, look at other movements. Look at Marang Baloch, a young woman leading the Baloch rights movement, who's a middle-class, professional, educated young woman. Look at the Pashtun Tahaffuz movement, led by young Pashtun men who are not talking about breaking away from Pakistan, but want constitutional rights. Look at the climate change activists. Look at the Aurat March, the young women marching. They all are fragmented, unfortunately, because we are in that moment of deep polarization. If one party says you're not with us, you're against us, it's that kind of a polarized polity. But I feel that societies are never static. They are dynamic. And the change is going to come through because remember that Pakistan's society and economy has also changed. We never had such a big middle class as we have now in the last 20 years. And middle classes have their own dynamics. We did not have a vocal, digital, noisy media as we have now. And I think that is all going to transform Pakistan. Of course, I'm an optimist at heart, so I'm not going to say, hi, lut gaye, mar gaye, because I see that there are many, many seeds of change, and I think we should focus on those, celebrate those, and work with them while resisting the authoritarian takeover.
Great, thank you. All right, here's what we're going to do. That was the end of round 1, quite a round. Round 2 is going to be quicker. Round 2 is going to be me reposting or challenging or asking if I do agree with them, asking our panelists to expand. If I disagree with them, I am going to push back. After this round, there's a third critical round, the town hall round. Now, there's a mic standing right there, if you see, in the middle of the stairway. You have to line up there, and you have to get behind that line on that mic in case you want your questions heard. We're going to remind you, once that round is happening, you've got to line up there, and I'll remind you exactly about the brevity of your questions, as well as that every question must end with a question mark. So start thinking if you want to participate in this. Taimur Jhagra, back to you. Taimur, you were critiqued here. You were critiqued here by our colleague, Professor Shah. You were critiqued here for having the wrong date of when, the fit hit the shan as far as democracy is concerned. For you, the end of history, the end of democracy begins with the ouster of your elected government, the vote of no confidence, and the incarceration, and thus what I call subsequent torture of your leader. 22, 23, 24, 25, here we are, right? Versus Professor Shah, who thinks actually it started all of this really under your auspices, under your watch in 2018. Fair question, I'd say. Please answer.
I'm glad you brought that up. You couldn't see me, but I was smiling at the time. Because any of you can take out what I said. I never claimed that this started in 2023. I think Aqil Shah can see that as well. I also don't think it started in 2018. We've had this struggle, and everyone knows we've had this struggle throughout our history. That's why from 58 to 71, from 77 to 88, from 1999 to 2008, we've had direct military rule. So, for me, it's true, and I agree that this never started in 2023, but I think whenever we actually try and justify bleak moments by saying you were a part of them, we actually dilute the struggle at present. And if we have to fight for democracy, because I agree with much of what all the speakers said, that this country only really works because of its diversity if all of its people have a voice, whether that's Mar and Baloch, whether that's those in the PTM, right, whether it's us, or whether it's other communities. But for that to happen, right, stop pointing the finger backwards, because that finger goes back 70, 75 years. I think if there are two things that I just want to say, and I try and be as impartial as possible. First, in the fight today, one of the weaker voices have been those who you would imagine would be championing democracy or democratic values, irrespective of who they like or they don't like. They do it because it's a principle. That's one thing. I think that support has been weaker. Two, no one's perfect, but I think let's call a spade a spade. I think, and I've never understood why, there is more latitude for traditional political actors than, say, someone like Imran Khan, because when you look at those traditional political actors today, for all the democratic values that we ascribe to them, they are all the ones that have closed their eyes and voted for the 27th Amendment, effectively silencing their own mouths to a T. Not a single voice that raised their hands, stood up, and said this was wrong. 90% of them know it was wrong. And the only thing I'll actually say about Imran Khan is the following. You start to measure the height of a man and the character of a man when he's in trouble. The last 2 years and a bit, Imran Khan has been in jail. And I think more than any of the other leaders present today, and the way that they have faced jail, I think the way Imran Khan has faced jail speaks for itself.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Hamid Mir sir. Come back. Hamid Mir sir, I'd like you to expand, because I actually completely agreed with your version of your recent tour to KP, where you are assessing that the KP, Balochistan, Azad Jammu Kashmir, Gilgit-Baltistan, even Sindh are stirring. But you left a pretty important province out of that stir. And this is the famous Takht-e-Lahore moment. Now, I know Raza's smiling because he's from Lahore, right? But we must ask, what's wrong with, or right for that matter, though I would prefer wrong, what's wrong with the Punjab? Why is the Punjab so content at making sure everybody is so discontent? Considering that we are a federation, the last time I checked, but there is, frankly, not a lot of trickle-down coming into the democratic process, and you missed Punjab from your assessment.
No, I mentioned Punjab. And maybe your audience here is not aware about the situation of the political workers and the political parties facing in Punjab. The reason is the media is not free. Okay? So, what I wanted to establish was, what I wanted to highlight was that the 27th Amendment is not a sign of strength. 27th Amendment is a sign of weakness. And that's why I'm very optimistic that those people who think that they are very powerful, they are feeling insecure. And this is actually a power struggle going on within Punjab. So your focus, my focus is KP. But the problem is in Punjab. And there is more repression in Punjab than other provinces. There are some parliamentarians who were elected from Punjab. They don't live in Punjab these days. They live in Peshawar. And I know what happened with them. Some of them are silent, and some of them are trying to, they are waiting for a time when they will speak out. You see, if they are not insecure, why they are trying to get lifetime immunity? So they are insecure, you see. So I am optimistic because of the 27th Amendment. This is an evidence that people of Pakistan are very strong, and some people who are living in the big palaces of Islamabad, they are very much scared from a prisoner.
Thank you. Yumna Rizvi. Yumna, I saw you smile in that last sentence by Mir Saab about people in power in the palaces of Islamabad are scared. Tell us more about the reason behind your smile when you said that.
I mean, I think, look, I agree with his assessment on that, like, this is a show of weakness, right? You're protecting yourself from something for the rest of your life. For what reason? If you don't think you've actually done anything wrong, if you think you are acting in the right, why are you getting all these lifelong immunities? To protect yourself from what? Right, like, and in the U.S. and in other, democracies, sure, like presidents get immunities, but you don't really see like the military or military command have this kind of like systems. They have their own, parallel judicial system, and so I just that's why I just found that funny. I was like, I agree with him in that I think that it shows a power imbalance. I think that, look, Pakistan's military has always sought legitimacy from external forces, and that's largely been its security partners, mostly the U.S., right? They've never sought legitimacy from the people because they are not elected by the people. So when you need legitimacy, they're seeking it from outside, and they're afraid of the people. They are, and you see that evidenced by human rights violations. You see the crackdown on repression. Hamid Mir Saab is just talking about media freedom. You're seeing this all over the place. Due process doesn't exist. You have like military courts. You have parallel judicial systems. If you're a democracy, you don't need any of those things for citizens, for civilians.
Well, we're not. We're a hybrid nizam now. But thank you. Thank you. Professor, I saw you put your hand up. when our friend Jhagra was. Do you have a repost for him? Feels
Yes,
like you want to challenge him back. You're really
Yes.
picking on my friend Taimur, by the way.
No. Look, I'll be very honest. I think if we're going to learn something from the experience of what's happening since 2022, we need to we politicians especially need to make themselves accountable. If you are saying that this started in 1947, 1958, we all know that. I'm fully aware of that. But let me pose a counterfactual. Tomorrow morning, General Munir wakes up, he's lost his memory, and he says, Imran Khan is my leader. Let's bring him out of jail, and let's put Shehbaz in jail. I can bet you that, Mr. Jhagra, you will forget your fight for democracy and you will join them. Having said that, I do not wish
Very
to...
interesting hypothetical.
Yeah.
Please cut off all Badam supplies to GHQ right now.
I do not wish to belittle what's been happening to the PTI. But I think the lesson that they should have learned is that the real problem is not the politicians. The real problem, I don't think Imran Khan is in jail because of his corruption, right? No politician went to jail because they were corrupt. They went to jail when they stood up to the military or developed differences with the military. So I think what we need to do is at least recognize that we were wrong. Yes, so are the generals, though. None of them went to jail. You see, the problem is not whether they were corrupt or not. The problem is that their corruption became a problem only when they stood up to the military. That's the point.
Okay, we'll come back. Hold on. We're getting there. All right. Thank you, Professor. Thank you. Taimur, I think I'm going to come back to you for that. I think I like this little back and forth between you two. So I'm going to enjoy this. I'm sure everybody else will too. Raza, question. This is specifically, I've been trying to ask you this question for years. So I'm going to finally have my moment. So there's a certain liberal class, a progressive class, a pro-democracy class. जिसे liberal elites भी कहते हैं, जिसे इमरान खान साहब एक ज़माने में fascist liberal elite कहते थे.
खूनी liberal.
Right. Acha, you happen to be one of these. Now, here's my thing. Here's my take. I'm very interested in Pakistan's left-right spectrum. You're obviously on the left, mashallah, say bless you. तुम जैसे और बात होने चाहिए. मगर सवाल ये है. The सवाल is very simple. What has happened to the so-called liberal elite, the Friday Times editors and the Dawn columnists and all those op-ed guys in the news and the Herald के, journalists हैं? What's happened to your tabka? What has happened that you guys have remained silent as the 26th and the 27th Amendment have been bulldozed? What has happened in your last 2 to 3 years worth of assessments when it comes to siding with Imran Khan? Is it what the PTI calls the Boze Imran? Is it the hatred for Imran and what he stood for? Or is it something larger? Because now we're at an embarrassing moment. The 27th has really targeted everyone, including the left. So when will the left wake up? His party's woken up, definitely not left. But when are you and your friends from the khas liberal elite going to wake up?
ये आपने मुझे Wajahat, you branded me in that category. I think the problem is there are two problems here. First is that a lot of it is untrue and inaccurate to say that the liberals have not sided with Imran Khan. Look at Hamid Mir Saab, for example. Although he doesn't consider himself as a liberal, but his positions on Balochistan, freedom of media are all liberal positions. He has been consistently talking about the repression against PTI, against Baloch people, and he gets abused for that. Day and night, if you follow social media, which I do every day, you see how much of abuse goes towards him. So there are many people...
Well, he's an outlier. That's
no, outlining. Human Rights Commission of...
Talking about the larger gang of thieves that
Human Rights Commission of Pakistan puts out regular presses, they do regular seminars, they do fact-finding missions. Hina Jilani has gone on fact-finding missions. Then Dawn newspaper has been very vocal. In fact, Dawn has been targeted by a lot of people in power, and there have been efforts to muzzle them because they take a position. Hamid Mir Sahab gets a lot of pressure. Of course, you know, he can't share many things with us or the audience, but they do this on a daily basis. There's a lot of repression. You have to, Wajahat, understand because we are here in DC or somewhere else where we have much more freedom to say such things. In Pakistan, it's not the case, especially with young journalists, with younger people who don't have those connections. If they feel, if somebody comes and picks them up, who's there to release them? Because the courts, I mean, this judiciary which is being mourned now, oh ji, ye qatl ho gaya, isi judiciary ke oversight ke niche, isn't Imran Khan in jail for last 2 years? And hundreds of others, political workers, they could not give any relief. So we have to understand the context of Pakistan today instead of targeting one class. And if PTI wants to take this process forward, it has to build coalitions with these people instead of targeting them and creating them as enemy class. Or,
I like that.
You know, khuni liberal, dollar khor, jo bhi naam diye jate hain.
Excellent. Okay, I like that. Fair. Okay, now, give me a minute. We've got to wrap up a couple of things. We're running low on time, as usual, when the show is great. So this is your last call for questions. So if you want to stand up and ask questions, please now proceed immediately to the questioning stand and get in line.
इनको time दीजिएगा ना यमुना को.
नहीं, देना है.
सवालात अब बड़े धड़ाधड़.
Please line up. While we line up, please maintain some silence. Please maintain some silence. Thank you. Aista. Yumna Rizvi, you get a special discount for your opinion. Go ahead.
I just want to add to what Raza was saying for 1 second, because it also doesn't help the narrative of like where people are when you see on social media PTI leadership, most recently, especially this week, going after, like, reposting old videos of students who are advocating for student unions and saying, where are you now? Where are you now? And then the students come out and say, we're literally fighting your cases for free. That doesn't help.
I'll give you an example. Amar Ali Jan's colleagues, left activists, they were doing this lal. So one of the, some PTI people, they started this campaign, oh, where is this lal? Where are they? And some of those young men have been actually giving pro bono legal services to the arrested PTI workers. So you demolish them, you demean them, and then you expect that they will come and...
I will pivot that. Taimur, I'm going to come to you. They're all converging upon you. This is interesting. But the question is, and this is an important one, why does the PTI find itself alone today? This is my last question before we open up the rounds. But Raza does have a point. Why is everybody who's not with you against you? Why is there such a George Bushian, especially on social media, a George W. Bushian perspective कि यार अगर तुम मतलब इमरान खान के चीते नहीं हो तो फिर as your party or former party member would say तुम मर गए हो.
In the same way that Munib Farooq and Ansar Abbasi do not represent Hamid Mir in the press, right? Or in the same way that people within a certain class that should be consistently reflecting democratic values do not necessarily represent the fine views of either Raza Rumi or Aqil Shah. Every voice on social media does not represent the official position of PTI. That does not affect. But I think, very simply, apply the same values to others that you apply to yourself. I can tell you there's one bet Aqil Shah had lost. Right? The day a military ruler or authoritarian person offers Imran Khan or anyone a deal, and the day that anyone takes the wrong position on that deal, someone like me doesn't need to stand with him. Period. I don't know what draws you to that conclusion, right? Maybe that sort of positioning and the sort of confidence with which it was said, right, reflects why some 20-year-olds on social media say, but your position isn't always consistent. Guys, it's for us as politicians to have inconsistent positions. right? Because that's what we are known for, right? Lead the way, show us. Now, I can also say, I actually represent, and many of us try and stop, right? Voices that try and critique voices that you can actually see that have been fighting on a consistent principle. I'll give you an example.
We've got to wrap it up, Taimur. We've got to wrap it up quickly. Thank you.
Imam Azadi, who's someone who's been a vocal critic of PTI, right, consistently stands on a principle of human rights. I don't look towards my party colleagues and what their opinion of her is, right, to be able to say she's a phenomenally brave person. But I'm sorry, every person who has said in the past that they stand for those values has not espoused that behavior, and that's a fact. Guys, focus on that. That's how we're going to move forward in this fight.
I like that.
What else do you want from me? I had 25,000 votes in an election. Someone with 1,600 votes was meant to win. The easiest thing for me to do anywhere before that happened or after that happened was to go to some safe room and say, let's cut a deal. I've chosen not to do that.
Thank you, Taimur. More power to you. Thank you. Thank you, Taimur. Thank you. You've made your point, and it's a good one. Okay, so now it's time for the most democratic part of the evening, which is your opinion. But because perhaps of my last experiences with the military, I've learned to be very undemocratic as well. So here's what I'm going to do in the interest of time. What I'm going to do is that I am going to sort of filter out the best of you, right? We need a question for Raza. If you have a question for Raza, step up to the mic. If you have a question for Aqil, step up for the mic. If you have a question for Yumna, step up for the mic. If you have a question for Hamid, step up for the mic. If you don't have a specific question, don't step up to the mic. We can't have general questions. And I'm going to call up who has a question for who, and of course for Taimur as well. So I'm going to start. Who has a question specifically? I'm going to break the queue. Yes, this is me being very militarized. I am going to be undemocratic. Who has a question for Hamid Mir specifically? He's come a long way. We need to ask him. Question. Go ahead, madam. Please introduce yourself. Please be brief. Please end your question with a question mark. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Laurie Watkins, I'm a foreign affairs and political analyst, and my question is a two-part, but it's short. The case completion rate in the Pakistani justice system is very low, which means that the ordinary man or woman cannot access justice for basic civil and criminal cases. The separation of constitutional and civil courts do nothing to help this. So is it at all possible that perhaps the critiques are arbitrary? And the second part is, also creating a chief of defense forces is a global standard of the military. So why is it such a big deal right now for Pakistan to do so? Please explain. Thank you.
Hamid Mir, sir.
You asked two questions actually, one about the judicial system and other about the Chief of Defense Staff. So the most of the people who are supporting this idea of appointing General Asim Munir as Chief of Defense Forces, they are giving the example of the India. They say that there is a Chief of Defense Staff in India. So we have defeated India in May 2025. So we have to introduce this office in Pakistan. So this is their logic. But I will come to your question about the judicial system. You see, you are talking actually about the lower judiciary. The common man in Pakistan cannot access the high courts and Supreme Court because the fees of the lawyers are very high. They are very expensive. But even if they can afford the fees of the lawyers, they will not get justice in short time. Maybe in 6 months or 1 year is in my view, a very short time. But I have filed petitions in Supreme Court and High Court. I can give you one example, that I filed a petition in the Supreme Court of Pakistan about the accountability of media, and I produced myself that I am ready for the accountability, but you should investigate not myself, but all the prominent TV anchors and the owners of the media houses. So that case in Supreme Court of Pakistan took at least 7 years. And ultimately, there was a code of conduct, the Supreme Court of Pakistan enforced it through Pakistan Electronic Media Regulatory Authority, but they never investigated me, they never investigated anyone else. And for the inquiry of the assassination of our colleague Arshad Sharif, I filed a petition in Islamabad High Court. Last year in August, they said that we have reserved the judgment, we will announce it very soon. And after 1 year, they made an announcement in this August 2025. You know what was the decision? They said, we reject the petition after 1 year. So this is the system, and the common man cannot get justice even from the lower court. So we need massive judicial reforms, and the massive judicial reforms can only be done by a genuinely elected parliament, not like a current parliament.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Inshallah, it will be. Okay, right, next question.
Can I just correct the misinformation that quickly, Chief of Defense Forces is a tri-service position that is responsible for strategic planning, integration. In no other country, at least not a democracy, is the Army Chief of Staff also the Chief of Defense Forces.
Correct.
Not in India, not in England. So this is just a fiction. It has nothing to do with military effectiveness. It is basically or jointness for that matter, or the integration of the command. It is just a naked power grab for the military to sort of formalize its de facto hegemony over the Navy and the Air Force.
Thank you. Excellent point. Okay, next question has to be very specific, very short. We're running out of time.
I have a question for Mir Sahab.
We don't have follow-up questions for Mir Sahab, sorry. Next question has to be for Yumna Rizvi. Do you have a question specifically for Yumna Rizvi? Please step up to the mic, introduce yourself, be brief, and with a question mark. No diatribes, please.
My name is Dr. Naila Bhatt, and I've worked for women's health and reproductive health in Pakistan and Canada. So my question, Yumna, is, as a, working for women reproductive health and rights, why hasn't the, the Western feminist movement supported the female prisoners which are, in Pakistan? Not only that, the Palestinian women that are suffering day and night, they're being killed. The movement that you talked about, Mera Jism Meri Marzi, nobody came out on the street for all those political prisoners who are in jail, and there are thousands of them. So that's my question.
Thank you. Yumna.
I'm trying to figure out how to answer this. I mean, look, I think it was mentioned earlier in one of the panels, it's about solidarity, and from the women that I've met in those movements in Pakistan have spoken about female prisoners and their reproductive, health issues. They've also spoken about, Palestinian women who are imprisoned. I'm sorry if that's been your experience, that you haven't seen that, but I have. And I've seen women, do organizing to make sure that women who are in prison get equipment that they need for menstruation purposes, whatever it may be, for sanitary things. I haven't, in my experience, seen that, and I'm sorry that you've had that experience.
Okay, thank you. A quick question. Be brief for Professor Aqil Shah, please.
Yeah. Assalamu alaikum.
This is for the PTI Walas to exact their revenge. Good moment.
Unfortunately, that will not serve the purpose. But my name is Asif Naqvi, and I have this question for specifically Aqil Shah Sahab. And it's not to support the current structural degeneration that we just saw a day or 2 days ago. So it's not in any shape to support that. Yet, when we talk about the democracy and the future of democracy, don't we see the current state of democracy in the Western world and also in the other places? India, you have a populist person who is successful in his democracy, and yet you have all sorts of problems. US has Trump. Europe has all kinds of those ultra-national, anti-immigration leaders as well. So when we talk so much about democracy, do we not see this aspect of democracy in the global stage?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Professor.
So you have to be a democracy first in order to backslide. The cases you cited are consolidated democracies where the quality of the institutions and the erosion of democratic norms is happening. Pakistan is not a democracy. So Pakistan's case is different because there's one institution that basically dominates pretty much every branch of government and is, as somebody said, is a state above state. So I don't think the comparison holds, but yes, democracy is in a crisis around the world, but I don't think Pakistan is, the comparison with the US or India is valid here, because in neither of these countries is the army the sort of Godzilla that basically crushes everyone else. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, last two questions. One has to be for Raza. I'll take Raza's and then we'll let our exit-controlled friend, Taimur Jhagra, take it away in the end. I hope you have a question for him. Please, do you have a question for Raza Rumi?
I do.
Okay, go ahead, madam.
All right, Mehlaka Samdani, hi Raza. And so this is for you and also all of the liberal elites that Wajahat was talking about, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way at all. But I'm just wondering if we can forget PTI and Imran Khan for a moment. Would you agree that military authoritarianism is a cancer in Pakistan that needs to be addressed? Do you believe that it is wrong to intimidate judges by placing cameras in their bedrooms? Do you believe it is wrong to have enforced disappearances of Baloch and Pashtun nationalists? Do you believe it's wrong to haul women out in the middle of the night and throw them in prison? Because if you do believe that those things are wrong, then you, Raza, sitting here in the US, have that obligation, because you have that veneer of protection here that you don't have in Pakistan, to speak out for those rights, irrespective of who those people are.
Thank you.
Thank you, Menaka.
Liberals की तो बहुत शामत है.
नहीं, कोई शामत की बात नहीं है. That's fine. Thank you, Menaka. Of course, people have a right to whatever you said. Obviously, I agree with what you're saying. My writing's on record. You can go online and check that. I mean, I also edit paper, a digital outlet. I have a colleague here, Marvi, who consistently reports on human rights almost every other day, if not every day. And the thing is that we do raise voice against all these issues, whether it's the curtailment of judicial powers or the authoritarianism or the way the current regime is treating, not just the PTI, but also other groups like the Baloch Yakjati Council. And I think all of that is on record. I think the problem is that a lot of us are not card-carrying members of the PTI.
Nor am I.
And I
but
think,
it doesn't matter.
No, we can't
have a pushback.
I'm not talking about you. It's not about you, madam. It's about a lot of people on social media who come up with these narratives, are very vocal. Many of them have their DP as the picture of Imran Khan. Now we don't, because we are not. And we have to be true to our political sort of affiliations. And in particular, when you are a journalist or a writer or whatever, you have to keep a distance away from one political party or the other. But your point is well taken. And I think it is absolutely right that, all of us in our own ways have to not only support the cause of human rights and democratic evolution in Pakistan and do as much as we can.
Thank you. And I completely second. Raza's publications, Raza's works, and even Raza's vlog is quite clear about his unequivocal stand for human rights. In fact, he's not just a friend, he's also, as I said earlier, a victim of actual terrorism against the dismantling of those human rights. So thank you, Raza. Thank you. Thank you for being so brave. But I will also say that I agree with Melika that there's not enough deep-throated support for the one and the only Imran Ahmad Khan Niazi across the board in most liberal circles, with lots of caveats and ifs and buts. Last question is for Taimur. Are you still with us? Have you conked off?
Yes.
All right. Last question for the one and only, the former finance minister of the KP, the former health minister of the KP, the And of course, currently exit controlled. Very, very rare commodity, ladies and gentlemen. Ask him your question. Who's got a question for Taimur Jhagra?
My name is Ariba Fatma, and I'm a journalist. My question for Taimur Jhagra is that do you think that Asim Munir represents a significant departure from the history of military dictatorship in Pakistan? We have seen dictator after dictator. But do you think in this specific case, given the 27th Amendment, is this exceptional? Is this different in any way? And a follow-up with that would be, do you see a future for Pakistan where the livelihood and the lives of people in Pakistan are not decided in the corridors of power in Washington, D.C., but by the people of Pakistan?
Thank you so much. Thank you. Excellent question. Taimur, you have the floor.
Into trouble because of his interviews, which some people tell me are partially responsible, Wajahat, for my troubles. And now Riba wants to get me into trouble. Let me just answer that. I think what is happening today is a departure from past military interventions, in the sense that I think incentives are different. I remember the latter years of the Zia martial law. I wasn't born when Zia took over. I certainly remember the Musharraf episode. And I think that when a martial law regime takes over, the night after, 10 Core takes over PTV and takes over the country, they have every incentive to try and present what's happening in the country on day 2 onwards as normalcy. The signal they want to send is that the constitution still exists, right? And that this may be a military setup, but that it's actually functioning as close as possible to a civilian setup. In the current hybrid setup, what we have is a setup that needs to use the constitution and the law to give itself legitimacy. Because we have the facade of a democracy. That facade may be wearing very loose, right? But that is still being used, and hence what is different is that every day you see that law being broken. You see the people resisting in a way that they never have before, and I think particular testament to that is what happened on February 8th, when the way that people voted, after 12 months of political engineering also, was incredible. And that's why you had on the 9th of February 8th, a situation where election results have to be engineered, where the proof of that engineering still exists on the Election Commission website as we speak, right? So the people resisted. But because of that, you have to continue to face blow after blow that impacts what we can say and what we can't say. That impacts that indeed when for the first time judges tended to push back on the establishment opinion, the entire judicial structure of the country was torn up. None of these things have been perfect, but none of that is an excuse, as many circles have, including the parties in power, to say that because of the excesses of the judiciary in the past, the 27th Amendment that breaks the back of any hope that the judicial system can offer justice to Pakistan, not to PTI, to the Marang Balochas of the world, to the PTMs of the world, right, and act as a check and balance, that entire system is broken. But it has to be done because in this case, when you're using a democratic facade to try and perpetuate rule, you need to break law after law after law. And I think the consequence of this really is, and this goes back, I've thought about this a lot, right? It's not the positions that parties take that is important. Because this democracy that Pakistan has been for the last 80 years or so has sent an incentive to every conventional politician, and those politicians exist in every party, to say, work with the system to gain acceptability. Right? And that's why you see so many contradictions in every party.
Right.
If we have to move forward, then it is the politicians in every political movement, in every party, as well as voices in other stakeholder groups, that have to rise above the norm and say, it's not just my coalition group or my party or the stakeholder group I'm a part of that I stand for. I stand for certain principles, period. There's enough of that. There's enough of us.
Right, Taimur. We have to wrap up. Last word.
Last sentence. Yeah, I'm just closing. There's enough of us. And when we actually learn to push back together, because the system's fragmented all of us, we will fight back. And it will be successful because the future of Pakistan depends on it.
Thank you. All right. So, firstly, my take and my last take, after which we begin our last segment. You heard different opinions. It's very difficult to express opinions in a room this diverse, in a room this far, in a room this perhaps monitored. The last few days, and especially the last few hours, we've been held accountable, even by people we thought were our friends. We've been blamed for being backed by the ISI. We've been blamed to be backed by forces that are antithetical to democracy. And I first urge you to A, look right or left and try to find the nearest ISI agent to you and make sure that you take a nice selfie with them, firstly. I haven't met one in a while, but I'm really looking forward to you connecting with them. Look left and right, you might find someone. So thank you, ISI, for being here. Make friends. Secondly, critically, crucially, it's very difficult to converge on one democratic platform or one platform about democracy. That's why we have elections. Now, there's no elections in this room, obviously, but what you have is a myriad of opinions which, by the way, have come from bullet wounds, from assassination attempts, from bans, from exiles. These are people who have paid with the price of their lives even, or close to losing them. So you need to firstly understand that that is the future of democracy. Right there, the diversified opinion of Pakistan. Right there. Secondly, crucially and lastly, the 1973 ka Ain, as we call it, right, is effectively, some people are saying, done. I'm not quite sure, because I do agree with Hamid Mir Saab that it's actually the 27th Amendment, which is in the news these days, just like the 26th Amendment was in the news a year ago, goes on to underscore the desperation of the powers that be. The desperation has been pointed out by Yumna, by Aqil, by Raza, by Taimur, about what sort of person wants lifetime immunity if they have nothing to hide. We have to think about that. But we can go into the nitty-gritty of it, but the broad pictures understand this. The 1973 Constitution, as we know it, was dependent on three different pillars of power: the executive, the judiciary, and of course, the parliament. Now, whatever the system was, there was some sort of check and balance over several years for it. What has happened at an accelerating rate is this trichotomy of powers, these three power centers, which were sort of like playing the little dance. The parliament would dance with the judiciary would dance with the executive, which sometimes was military-backed or not. Well, they've all gone kind of haywire skewed in favor of one. The executive today, which is backed clearly by the military, is strong. The judiciary is effectively defanged. And the parliament, well, it just shot itself in the head. Right? Now that goes to underscore that the future of democracy structurally is not safe.
Thank you,
it's
sir.
very weak. But critically and crucially, the future of democracy is not just structural, the future of democracy is right here. It's systemic, and this is the system. Thank you so much. Khayal rakhiye apna.
Thank you very much, and I think this panel itself was an epitome of what we were trying to build. I loved how everyone disagreed with each other, but in a very constructive manner.